Look at you, Lydia May, fat as a brood sow clogging up the doorway. Martha Calder's voice cut through the yard like a whip, sharp and shrill. Evelyn Calder threw her head back and laughed. No wonder father hid you, she sneered. A bastard daughter, and this fat. It is a disgrace. Roy Calder stepped closer, boots thudding on the porch plank. I would rather let dogs sleep in this house than you, he said. You are nothing here. Lydia held the small wooden box tighter against her chest. It was all she had left of old Ben Turner, the only man who had ever called her his girl. Martha lunged forward and clawed at the box. Give it here. The ashes of that miserable old man, and you still cling to them. Let me get rid of it. She yanked hard. The box slipped from Lydia's hands. It hit the porch and burst open. Ashes puffed into the air and drifted down in dull gray flakes. Lydia dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather them with shaking fingers. Dust streaked her skirt. Ash smeared her palms. Get off our land, you useless fat thing, Martha spat. This ground belongs to the Calder name, not to you. The front door slammed in Lydia's face. Out near the fence line, Jacob Warren sat frozen in his saddle, fist tight on the reins. He had watched every word, every cruel gesture, and the moment the girl's heart broke. For a long breath, the yard lay still. Only the ashes moved, sliding between Lydia's fingers as she tried to cup them back into the broken box. A horse snorted softly. Bootsteps sounded on the hard dirt behind her. Careful, a man's voice said, low and even. You will lose more if you rush. Lydia stiffened. She looked up and saw the cowboy from the fence, hat pulled low, eyes dark with something that was not mockery. He crouched beside her without asking. He used his bare hand to scoop up a small drift of ash and set it gently into the box lid. He deserves to be gathered, the man said. Old Ben kept this place standing more than any of them. Lydia's throat closed. You knew him, she whispered. Jacob Warren nodded once. Every rancher along Red Willow Creek knew Ben Turner, he answered. He fixed our gates and our tempers. He was a good man. Lydia blinked hard. Nobody says his name like that, she said. Jacob held the lid steady while she brushed more ash inside. What is your plan now, Liddy? He asked quietly. Doors shut. They are not opening it again. She gave a small, helpless shake of her head. I have nowhere, she said. This was it. Jacob studied her for a moment, jaw working. Then maybe, he said, standing and offering his hand, it is time you start someplace where they hire hands instead of kicking them into the dust. Lydia stared at his outstretched hand. It was rough, scarred from rope and weather, but steady. I am not a lady you rescue, she muttered. I am just me. Jacob's mouth twitched. I am not offering rescue, he said. I am offering work. He glanced toward the shut Calder door. You saw how they looked at you, he went on. They will not pay you, only use you. My place is different. Warren Ranch pays for every back that bends and every job done. No charity. Lydia turned the broken box in her hands. Ash streaks darkened the grain. Old Ben had told her so many times to keep her chin level, to stand as wide as she needed. What would you even have me do? She asked. I am not graceful. I am not quick. You have strong arms, Jacob said. You held that box like the roof was falling. There is always work for strong arms. He jerked his head toward the road. My ranch is a short ride west. You come, you work, you get paid. If you do not like it, you leave. All choice is yours." The word choice landed heavy and strange in her chest. No one had ever framed her life that way. Lydia looked once more at the house that had rejected her. Then she rose, clutching what ash she had saved. "All right," she said. "I will come. For work. Nothing else." Jacob tipped his hat. "That is all I ever meant," he answered. The Warren place spread out low and wide beneath a pale sky. Fences stitched the land into long, dusty rectangles. Smoke drifted from a simple stone chimney. "This is it," Jacob said as they rode in. "Warren Ranch. Not much to look at, but she feeds those who feed her." Two ranch hands paused by the corral, watching them approach. Their eyes ran over Lydia, taking in the strained seams of her dress, the tired slump of her shoulders. Jacob dismounted. He moved slower than a proud man would, as if giving her time. "You can stable your horse with mine," he told one of the hands. "This is Lydia May. She will be helping out for a while." The men exchanged a glance but said nothing. Inside the long, low house, Jacob showed her a wash basin and a bar of yellow soap. "You can clean up here," he said. "Food is in the kitchen. You eat, then we talk jobs." Lydia stared at the plain wooden table, the chipped mugs, the loaf of bread waiting there. It was not rich, but it was honest. "You do not have to feed me," she said. Jacob shrugged. "I do, if I want you standing straight on your feet when you start," he replied. She washed, watching the gray water swirl away, carrying dirt and ash from her skin. When she sat to eat, hands still trembling a little, no one stared. It was the strangest kindness she had felt in years. After the meal, Jacob led her out to a shaded corner of the yard. A heap of rope and reins lay tangled on a bench. "First job," he said. "These have been waiting too long. We need them sorted and coiled before the next drive." Harris, one of the ranch hands, snorted nearby. "Good luck," he muttered. "That pile has beaten every man here." Lydia sank onto the bench. The rope smelled of sweat, dust, and horse. Her thick fingers hesitated over the first knot. She heard old Ben's voice in her memory. "Any knot can be worked loose, Liddy. You just need patience and a steady hand." She took a breath and began. One loop at a time. One tight twist eased. One hidden end found. Hours passed. The sun shifted. A breeze moved dust through the yard. When Jacob returned from checking cattle, he stopped short. The messy heap was gone. In its place lay neat, tight coils of rope, stacked in even rows. "You did all this?" he asked. Lydia wiped her brow, leaving a pale streak through the dust. "Yes," she said softly. "Ben Turner, he taught me. He said rope obeys the calm mind, not the strong arm." Jacob picked up a coil and tested its lay. "It is good," he said. "Better than I expected. Better than we had." For the first time, pride flickered in Lydia's eyes. The next morning, Lydia rose with the bell. Her shoulders ached, but the ache felt clean. She carried feed buckets toward the small pen, careful not to spill. The boards creaked under her weight. Behind her, she heard Harris laugh with another hand. "Look at that," Harris said. "All that fat and she still climbs like the porch will not break. Give it time." The other man chuckled. "Maybe Jacob hired her as a wall. Nothing is getting past that belly." Lydia's grip tightened on the bucket handle. Heat rushed to her face. She kept her eyes on the animals, letting the words fall like stones behind her. Then a shadow fell across the pen. "Harris," Jacob's voice cut in, flat and cold. "You done talking over there, or you want to pack your things now?" Harris straightened. I was only joking, boss. I do not pay you to joke about the hands, Jacob said. I pay you to work. Lydia is working. Are you? Silence stretched. The other man drifted away, suddenly interested in anything else. Lydia did not turn, but her shoulders eased. No one had ever shut down mockery on her behalf before. As she brushed a rough cow's neck, she whispered inside, almost afraid to shape the words. Maybe I am not just something to laugh at here. The thought sat in her chest, small and bright. That night, sleep came slow. The bunk Jacob had given her in the small side room creaked with every turn. Moonlight slid through the narrow window and cut a pale stripe across the floor. Lydia lay on her back, hands folded over her stomach, and let herself remember. Old Ben's hands had always smelled of pine smoke and oil. On the winter night Thomas rode away for the last time, Ben had sat with her by the fire. Thomas brought me here when you were just a red face and a scream, he had said, poking the coals. He said, Ben, you stay with Sarah and the baby. Keep them safe. That is what I am paying you for. Lydia, 10 years old and already wide in the shoulders, had stared into the flames. And when he dies? She had asked. Ben had looked at her over the rim of his cup. Then I stay because I choose to, he answered. Because someone has to stand between you and that woman he calls wife. Now, in Jacob's quiet house, Lydia turned her face toward the wall. Ben was gone. The woman he had hated had slammed the door in her face. But the memory of his promise settled inside her like a hand on her back. You keep going, girl. You open the knots they tie around you. She breathed out, slow and steady, and closed her eyes at last. The wind began before noon. It came down the creek bed in hard gusts that rattled the barn doors and sent dust spinning into the air. Jacob was out riding fence. Most of the hands were scattered across the pasture. Lydia was stacking sacks of grain under the lean-to roof when the first gust tore a corner of the canvas loose. The second ripped it higher. Rain clouds rolled over the distant ridge. The wind struck again. The front row of sacks toppled. One rolled off the edge and thumped toward the slope that led down to the creek. No! Lydia gasped. She dropped the sack in her arms and lunged. The ground slipped under her boots. Her skirt tangled around her legs. She skidded on one knee, but her big hands grabbed the runaway sack just before it slid over the drop. Another gust shoved at her back. She gritted her teeth and drew the weight in toward her body, then braced and pushed it uphill inch by inch. More sacks leaned, ready to fall. She straightened them, one by one, chest heaving. By the time Jacob galloped in, the wind had peeled the canvas almost all the way back. But the grain stood in solid stacks, wedged safely against the wall. Lydia leaned against a post, hair in her eyes, dress streaked with dirt. Jacob swung down and took in the scene. You did this? He asked. She nodded, too breathless to speak. He looked at the slope, at the sacks, at her scraped knee. You might have just saved us a month of feed, he said quietly. That evening, the ranch crew gathered by the long table. The wind still muttered around the eaves, but the worst had passed. Jacob stood at the head, a plate in his hand. Harris slouched nearby, eyes darting from Lydia to the stacked grain visible through the open door. We had a bad gust today, Jacob said. Could have lost half our feed. A murmur rolled through the room. We did not, he went on. Because someone got there first. Lydia felt every gaze slide to her. Her cheeks burned. She stared at her bowl, fingers knotting in her apron. She went after the sacks alone, Jacob said. Pulled them back uphill. Braced them, and she stayed on her feet. Harris scoffed under his breath. She is heavy enough, he muttered. Jacob's eyes cut to him. Heavy is what kept those sacks from reaching the creek, he replied. Heavy is what held this place together today. Silence fell. Then one of the older hands lifted his cup. To Lydia, he said, stronger than most men I know. A few more cups rose. The sound of them clinking together was small but clear. Lydia swallowed hard. She had been pointed at in rooms before. Mocked. Sent away. This was the first time anyone had pointed to her as the reason something was saved. She let herself breathe that in, slow and deep. The peace did not last long. 3 days later, dust rose again on the road to Warren Ranch. Jacob saw the Calder wagon first, rolling like a storm cloud. He stepped off the porch as it ground to a halt. Martha climbed down, skirts snapping. Evelyn followed, chin high. Roy dropped from the back, fists already tight. You have something of ours, Martha said without greeting. This is my land, Jacob answered. I own every inch you are standing on. I am not talking about dirt, Martha snapped. I am talking about that fat bastard girl you took in. She belongs to the Calder family. She does not belong to anyone, Jacob said. His voice stayed level. She works for me. I pay her. That is all. Evelyn's gaze raked the yard until it caught Lydia by the barn. Look at her, she spat. Standing there like she thinks she fits. Bring her here, Jacob. We are taking her off your hands. Roy took a step forward, shoulders bunching. I will drag her if I have to, he growled. Jacob moved without thinking. He stepped between them and Lydia, boots planted. You will not lay a finger on any hand under my roof, he said. Roy sneered. You going to fight the Calder name for that? Jacob held his gaze. If the Calder name means kicking a girl into the dust after stealing her home, he said, then yes, I will. Behind him, Lydia's heart pounded. Someone was finally saying out loud what had been wrong all along. That night, Lydia did not sleep. Everything Ben had ever told her about the Calders churned in her head. Morning found her standing by Jacob's hitching post, jaw set. I want to go to town, she said when he came out. To the courthouse in Red Willow. I want to see the papers on that house. He studied her face. This is your choice? He asked. Yes, she said. I am tired of being pushed off ground that might be mine. The ride into town was quiet. The courthouse smelled of paper and old dust. A gray-haired clerk peered over his spectacles as Lydia spoke. My mother was Sarah May, she said. My father was Thomas Calder. He bought a house and 10 acres for us. I want to know whose name is on that land. The clerk frowned and turned to the records. He pulled out a thick book, then another. Nothing. He almost closed the drawer, then paused. There is an older box, he muttered. Files no one checks. From the back, he dragged out a tin box and flipped it open. Inside lay a folded document, edges browned. Gift deed, he read aloud. Thomas Calder transfers ownership of 1 house and 10 acres at Red Willow Creek to Sarah May and her daughter, Lydia May. Witnessed by Reverend Collins and Dr. Finch. Lydia's knees went weak. Martha's bribe, the missing paper, the years of silence, all of it sharpened into one clear fact. The house had been hers all along. The Calder house looked smaller when Lydia rode back up the lane. Not in size, but in power. Jacob rode at her side, hat low against the light. The deed lay tucked safe inside her bodice. Martha burst onto the porch as they dismounted. What are you doing here? She snapped. I told you to stay gone. Lydia climbed the steps, each board answering her weight with a solid creak. You told me to leave land that was not mine, she said. You were wrong. She held up the paper. This is a gift deed. Thomas Calder gave this house and these 10 acres to Sarah May and Lydia May. Signed, witnessed, filed. Color drained from Martha's face. Evelyn's mouth opened and shut. Roy swore under his breath. The clerk kept a copy. Lydia added, "You cannot buy them all." Jacob stayed silent behind her, presence like a wall. "This place is mine now," Lydia said. Her voice did not shake. "You may keep your big house up the hill. I only want what my mother swept and what Ben guarded." Inside, she set a new wooden box on the small table by the window. Carefully, she poured what remained of old Ben's ashes into it. Outside, under the red willow tree, the creek whispered over stones. Jacob stepped into the doorway. "You all right, Liddy?" he asked. She looked around the little room. "It is not much," she said. Then she smiled, tired and bright. "But it is mine, and I am not alone anymore." Jacob tipped his hat. "Then we will start from here," he said. The late sun spilled across the little house as Lydia May stood in her doorway, the gift deed folded safely in her hand. The world felt different now, not louder, not brighter, just finally steady beneath her feet. For years, she had carried weight that wasn't hers. Shame others put on her, insults she never deserved, and the fear of never belonging anywhere. But tonight, she stood on her own ground. Her mother's ground, old Ben's ground, and now, truly, hers. Jacob Warren lingered a few steps behind, hat in hand, giving her space the way only a respectful man does. He didn't tell her what to do next. He didn't claim any part of her victory. He simply nodded, as if to say, "You fought for this, and you won." The red willow branches rustled above them soft, like a blessing. Some stories in the West end with gun smoke and revenge. But the ones worth remembering end quietly, with a woman choosing her own life for the first time. If this story touched you, let me know where you're watching from. And if you'd like more gentle Western tales of dignity, justice, and unexpected kindness, sevens, please consider subscribing. The next story is already waiting on the trail.